is Siddhant Prasad. I'm a lecturer in law at the law school, and I shall be your host for this evening. Today evening, we are delighted to have with us Professor Upendra Baxi, who will be joining us to talk about the relationship between law and technology, and who will also have us consider whether law in itself might be viewed of as technology. Now, we are indebted today to our chief guest, Justice Sundar, and our guest of honor, Mr. Sriram Panchu, for joining us here today by taking time out of their very busy schedules. So we really are most grateful. May I now request the Chancellor to kindly address the gathering.
Honorable Justice Sundar, my dear friend Sriram Panchu, Professor Barucha, Professor Reena Patel, distinguished guests, and dear friends, and my dear students. It's a great honor to be here for me today, as it's a very important day in the history of Sai University. It's a day to be marked as the Red Letter Day. This is a day we are starting the first formal public function of Sai University School of Law. And my joy knows no bounds. Before I talk about the School of Law, I need to talk about Sai University first. Many of you may not have heard about Sai University, its history and purpose and the vision. We started Sai University in 2018, little over 4 years ago. It was formed as a private university by an act of Tamil Nadu legislature and has been approved by UGC. It's been running for the past 2 years. The School of Law has been one of the first schools in Sai University. And the very first program started by Sai University was a Daksha Fellowship in Techno Law. Technology law being a specialty of Sai University. We offered a 1-year diploma in technology law as the very first program at Sai University. And the students of all of them are working all around the country and around the world. I'm very happy to say that first cohort of 45 students of Daksha Fellowship are all well placed and settled in their professional pursuits. The second part about Sai University that I'd like to emphasize is Sai University designed as India's first international university. If you've seen around 75 plus years of independence, we have not had any great international university or institution from India. When we're doing the feasibility study for Sai University, I did some research with our consultants, and we found that our most eminent institutions, the IITs, are ranked between 125 and 175 globally. It is true that in the early years of our independence, we are focusing on primary education. And sometime thereafter, we should have shifted our gears to higher education, which I believe the policymakers failed to recognize. As a result of which, today, most education institutions in higher education space are degree-producing factories. We have students in thousands, and degrees are being granted with no accomplishment around the country or around the world. And of course, many of our students who have gone for masters or for higher education abroad have done exceedingly well internationally and have done proud for themselves and their country. So we analyzed the reasons for it and found that the primary cause lies in the design of the foundation of our universities and our curriculum. Our universities and the curriculum, or even our most eminent colleges and the curriculum, haven't changed very much in the last 70 plus years. We're still offering the same combo courses. We're offering the same economics, psychology, statistics, same physics, chemistry, mathematics. The same courses again. The students get a package. The package is pre-programmed with the curriculum. Even the contents of the course, the handouts, the lectures are pre-programmed. And there is no change. There has been delta change over the years. And the education system quality, therefore, is not improved. So we decided that Sai University will do things differently and do it in a way that international universities of great eminence have succeeded. So the first foundation of Sai University is a multidisciplinary, interdisciplinary education model. Just to say that right now we have 3 schools in Sai University: School of Law, School of Arts and Sciences, and School of Computing Sciences. School of Law, of course, students are strongly regimented by the rules and procedures of Bar Council of India. They have to study certain essential subjects, which they do. Plus, we do give them options to pursue other multidisciplinary, interdisciplinary education and other subjects. We take the students of arts and sciences or students of computing and data science courses. They have the freedom to select their courses across schools. We have students who's doing biotech major with computer science minor and a law minor. We have a student who is doing music major with similarly computer science minor and a law minor. I asked the students, why did you select this combination of programs? Their simple option is, there is no other university in India or college in India which is offering this combination. I said, yes, but what is the purpose of making this combination of courses? The student who took biotech plus computer science and law said very clearly, I want to be a biotechnologist researcher. I want to understand biotech, and to do the number crunching comes out of research in biotech. I want to learn computer science, and I want to be patenting my research and monetize it. Therefore, I want to understand law to protect my research, gain monetarily from it. Very crystal clear thought. The student who wanted to do music, computer science, was clear to say, sir, I want to stop my education with my undergraduate, and I want to study only till undergraduate. After that, I want to start a company in digital music. And therefore, I want to learn music and computer science and to run a company in learning law. So the combination of programs are given so that the students can select their own majors and minors across our schools in what is designed to be of their own choice. So the students have a choice of selecting any program, any school within the system. So today we have 3 schools. Even the students who are in the law school, who are doing undergraduate BA, LLB program integrated, can take additional courses in computer science if they so wish, or they take courses in other subjects, music or literature, if they have interest, so that they can put in the extra hours to study subjects offered beyond what is given by Bar Council of India. The reason behind this education curriculum design and the university design is that we're not too sure what's going to be the future world. We're not too sure what technologies are going to play out. We're not too sure what is going to be the profession or skills or occupation that's going to be needed for the current day students to maintain their career for the next 30, 40 years. So there is no purpose in giving them a regimented education. Therefore, we're giving them a choice to be able to choose from a variety of courses across, and that they can give them options to change their profession during the mid-career or late career. So this design has been very unique to Sai University, and in addition to the schools we're having, we also have plans in the near future to introduce School of Business with undergraduate and postgraduate programs. We have plans to start a School of Engineering, not the traditional overworked model of mechanical, electrical engineering, but we plan to offer programs in space sciences, nuclear sciences, defense sciences. And then we're planning to start a hospital and, of course, a School of Health Sciences. So in the future date, a few years down the road, you would see a Sai University student maybe doing an undergrad in medical sciences, but doing minor in computer science and minor in maybe law or economics. And that will lead to a variety of professions in the development of their own career so that they can design their own future. This fundamentally is a conceptual difference between Sai University and other universities existing in India. There are many world-renowned institutions who offer similar models. So I'm so happy to say that we are using that model. And our model has been verified, proven right, because what we designed in 2018 has been adopted by the government in 2020, the new education policy. So this has been accepted post factum, 2 years later. So the way we are teaching today and our curriculum and the flexibility of mass and the flexibility of curriculum and the flexibility of evaluation, they have also been accepted by the new education policy, which gives the students a lot of flexibility and even transferability of courses and credits across universities. So we have to say that Sai University is on a pioneering journey in a new education system, which we believe will transform India and especially take the younger generation, which is world's largest population of youth, into careers of the HRs and help build a more vibrant, modern India, as well as contribute to the entire world. We do believe that students of Sai University will soon, one day, land up not only in the moon, perhaps on the Mars, and do proud for Sai University and all our eminent faculty. So having said that about Sai University, it's my privilege today to talk for a few minutes about the endowment program. Until now, Sai University, of course, as the founder and chancellor, I've been funding this university for the past 4 years. And we have a very eminent board. And I don't know those who have not seen it. Sai University's Board of Governors has 5 Padma Awardees, including 4 Padma Vibhushan and a Padma Shri. And our faculty list includes people from almost all our universities around the world, the eminent universities in several continents. So we believe that this university has been built on 5 foundations, pillars. One is governance, which is perhaps the best board of governors of any institution in India. Then our faculty, globally renowned faculty. Then we have a fantastic multidisciplinary, interdisciplinary curriculum. We are building up slowly but steadily world-class infrastructure. And last but not the least are our bright young students who are going to be contributing to the university's fame and their own success. So after this, I want to introduce that concept of endowments and fellowships. In our recent board meeting, we discussed the possibility that our university has to raise its own funds to be able to support in the next 100 years, 200 years, and so on. And the success of the university will be dependent on its ability to raise internal funds to support not only education, but also to support research and to support other educational support activities. So with that concept in mind, we have defined a policy of endowments, fellowships, and donations. I'm very happy to say today that the first inaugural endowment program of Sai University has been organized for today. This is the very first program. And I'm also proud to say that this program of endowment of late S. Krishnamurti, advocate of Madras High Court, who incidentally happens to be my father. And this endowment in the name of my late father has been established by my older sister, Dr. Vasanta Barucha. So I'm happy to stay here, not only as a founder and chancellor in this meeting, but also the son of late S. Krishnamurti, in whose name this endowment has been inaugurated today. So I wish the function all success, and I now hand it over to the Master of Ceremonies to take it over from here. Thank you all.
Thank you indeed, sir, for your remarks and for your vision. I now have the honor of inviting Dr. Vasanta Bharucha, generous donor of this lecture series, daughter of the late S. Krishnamurti, and indeed sister to our Honorable Chancellor. Dr. Bharucha.
Namaskar. Shri S. Krishnamurti was a noble and ethical gentleman lawyer from Chennai who was highly respected and admired for his legal acumen and proficiency, tempered with professional integrity and humane values. He was born in 1906 and lived until 1986 and was affectionately called SK by legal professionals and clients. SK completed his BA in Maths from Presidency College, Madras, law degree from Madras Law College, and was enrolled in the Madras High Court Bar in 1930. And he was a junior of late Shri Subbaraya. He specialized in corporate law and taxation laws and practiced in Madras High Court and tax tribunals. When corporate world in India was still developing, he specialized in the nuances of company law, besides advising many leading corporate groups of today, even from their early stages. Despite being a visionary and expert in corporate and taxation laws, who established many case laws which are being cited even today, SK avoided publicity or self-promotion. His legal acumen was admired and advice was sought by many leading clients, lawyers, and judges. SK was greatly influenced by Swami Vivekananda and legal luminaries like Sir C.P. Ramaswamy Iyer, Shri Alladi Krishna Swami Iyer, and others. His legal colleagues and peer group consisted of the famous Chief Justice M.M. Ismail, Justice Sethuraman, Justice Ranganathan, Justice Balasubramanian, and many of the past generation of lawyers. SK's colleagues were impressed by his intellect, integrity, ethical values, and discipline. He was a gentleman of simple living, high thinking, and proponent of truth and value systems. In his early phase, late Sri Krishnamurti lived through considerable difficulties, which propelled him to help the less privileged students in education with financial generosity. He donated a good part of his earnings to the causes of education. He actively helped in the founding of premier educational institutions like Vidya Mandir School, Vivekananda College, as well as in management education and women's education. Driven by his charitable and helping nature, SK extended pro bono legal and advisory services to institutions like Sanskrit College, Venkatramana Ayurvedic Dispensary, and many more institutions and people. In charity, he followed the principle that the left hand need not know what the right hand gives, and even close family was not privy to his generosity. SK's wife, late Srimati Rajalakshmi, a gifted singer and a homemaker, earnestly supported and encouraged in all his efforts. He raised a large family of children and supported many members of his extended family all his life. His children grew into becoming eminent citizens and accomplished individuals in their respective fields, as well as carrying on his legacy of human values, generosity, partnership, and leadership. Appa, we wish you were with us. Thank you, Sai University, for the opportunity.
Thank you, Dr. Barucha, for indeed your generosity and for illuminating us on the figure for whom this lecture series stands as a testament to. Now, before inviting our honourable chief guest to deliver his remarks, may I please request our Chancellor, Mr. K.V. Ramani, to hand over a small token of appreciation to our chief guest. Thank you. May I also request our Vice-Chancellor, Professor Jamshed Bharucha, to hand over a token of appreciation to our guest of honour, Mr. Sriram Panchu, Senior Advocate. I now have the honour of inviting our honoured chief guest, Justice M. Sundar, to deliver his remarks.
Vinarayanan, Justice Kannan, Professor Baxi, Vasanta Barucha, and Thiru K.V. Ramani, Founder Chancellor, Dr. Reena Patel, Dean of the Law School, Thiru Sriram Panchu, Senior Advocate, then your Vice Chancellor, and Thiru Krishnamurti. I find Mr. Murari and several other, Karthik Seshadri, several other known faces. Pardon me for not mentioning all the names, all others who are here. Good evening. When I came in here, there was a small little conversation with Dr. Reena Patel, Dean. She asked me, where did you study law? So I told her, the Madras Law College, now Dr. Ambedkar Government Law College. And then I paused and asked her, you asked me where I studied law, right? Let me add clarity to my answer. I went to Madras Law College. So the reason why I mentioned it actually happened. I'm not saying this. It actually unfurled as I'm just narrating to you as it unfurled when I walked into this room. The reason why I'm sharing this with you is with a purpose. The purpose is this: the dynamics and dimensions of legal education has undergone a sea change. I'm talking about 40 years ago. I belonged to the first batch of 5-year law course in the country, 1983 to 1988. So when I'm talking about 1983, 40 years ago, it's undergone. The law schools today are so very different. And we never got to listen to jurists like Professor Upendra Baxi during our days. Therefore, it's wonderful that the whole culture has changed for the better. And let me tell you, I am not going to talk about the topic, on the topic. I am only going to talk about the occasion. Somebody else, Lakshmanan, asked me, I told him, sorry, I'm not going to, I don't intend committing trespass. I told that to your dean also. The reason is, let's listen to Professor Baxi. Now, he's 84 years old, 84 years of age, if I'm right. Now, look at the irony. Just look at the, I wouldn't say irony, Just look at the coincidence. The topic originally sent to me said paradoxes and puzzles of laws, soft technology governing hard technology. And then paradoxes and puzzles are not there. I'm wondering if they got solved. So then I said, no, it was not solved. It was truncated because the topic was too long. That's beside. But look at it. We all hope he was here in person. That would have made a world of difference. And I was here only as a keen audience here. I grabbed the opportunity to be here. But I'm told he's a little indisposed and he's feeling under the weather. And therefore, he has joined us virtually. That's technology. So look at the coincidence. Absent this technology, we wouldn't be having Professor Baxi addressing us today. So it's both a coincidence and an irony. Way back in '83, we had one recommended text that was on legal history and legislature authored by Professor Baxi. So thereafter, the first time I got to see him in person, or hear him rather, was sometime in late 2016 or 2017 in the National Judicial Academy. That was it. And about him, I thought I'll just share with you. As I understand, I was just reading a 2015 interview given by him. Interestingly, he appears to be a reluctant student of law. He says he joined law, Government Law College, Bombay. He says he dropped out after the first semester. I just quote what I could read in his 2015 interview. The reason he says is, it was dull, full of details, and no compelling human interest for me as literature had. This is precisely what he had to say in that interview. And then a year later, he again joined law, and he said, I think he was with a shipping tycoon that time. And then he said, sorry, I would not bother much about the classes. So probably he also went to Government Law College, Bombay. So that's my understanding from the interview. But for a moment, don't think I'm a jurist. The reason why I'm here is, I know why I'm here. I told that to Mr. Sriram Panchu when he called me. I asked him, with this galaxy, why me be there? Why should I be there? Why am I there? Then he said, no, Judge. The reason is this. I don't know whether Professor Baxi remembers having said this. He said, I'm excluding Lakshman Narayan and Kanan and any others who are all alive, who are all in the live stream, who joined us virtually. I'm speaking about myself. He said, judges are ex officio jurists. So therefore, I'm here at best as an ex officio jurist. I know I'm here because of the prefix, but then I'm here as a keen audience listen to Professor. Now, very recently, from after '83, I got to read some piece written by him. I don't know how many of you have come across this book. The title is The Court and the Constitution of India, Summits and Shallows. I don't know how many of you had the occasion to. This is by Justice O. Chinnappa Reddy, Summits and Shallows. He gives a good, wonderful collection of various landmark judgments of the Supreme Court. And it makes very, very interesting reading. I have not completed. It's a very recent, it hit the stands very recently. I've still not got out of that habit. I still read books. I still manage to do that, at least while I travel. It hit the stands very recently. And the best part is, Professor Baxi has written the foreword. And I found something very, very interesting in the foreword. It's in his inimitable style. And he tells the readers, or probably the prospective readers who are reading the foreword, as to how this work is very different from other works on constitutional law and the various judgments of the highest constitutional court. I think it's so tersely eloquent and typical of Professor. I would dilute it. If I try to tell you what he has said, I would rather quote and unquote. What he said was, I just noted it down. He said, It moves beyond cash and carry type constitutional commentary from which neoliterate constitutional practitioners may derive weight of everyday citational authority. So that much about the forward. But I think I'm halfway through the book. I think Professor was very, very prophetic. When I complete the book, I'm sure I will be able to assert that he was very prophetic. So I don't intend to stand between you and the lecture. And I would only say, thank you for calling me. Thank you for having me here. And many thanks for having given me this opportunity. I was able to extricate myself from the regular responsibilities and be here. I am also looking forward to listen to Professor Baxi. Wish you all a wonderful evening and thank you.
Thank you very much, Justice Sundar, for your remarks. May I now invite Professor Reena Patel to introduce our keynote speaker and say a few words about the School of Law.
Thank you, Siddhant. Good evening, everyone. Honorable Chief Guest, Justice Sundar, Guest of Honor, Senior Advocate, Mr. Panchu, Honorable Founder Chancellor, Honorable Vice Chancellor, distinguished guests, colleagues, friends, thank you so much for coming. Thank you for your presence here. Students, of course. It is indeed our privilege, our honor to launch, to have the inaugural public lecture series of Sai University. We are lucky and grateful to Dr. Barucha for the endowment. We, as I said, we are privileged to launch this tradition of Sai University through the law school. Following from a little bit of what the Chancellor mentioned about the vision that founded the university, our purpose at the School of Law is to be active participants in shaping the future and agents of positive change towards greater justice and equity among peoples and populations around the world. Accordingly, our vision is to equip and enable the professionals of tomorrow, trained to the highest standards, who are thoughtful and considerate as they engage their knowledge and skills in myriad ways. Fostering dialogue and a spirit of openness with critical yet nuanced understanding is central to achieving our purpose and vision. As the Chancellor was mentioning earlier, we don't know what the future of tomorrow will hold. We do know that the future has many challenges emerging, some known, some identifiable to some extent, but the world will be different for the future generations. Of course, the world has always changed. We know that the world has never stayed the same, but the current changes, the current exigencies, the current crises that are unfolding do require specific attention to be paid by us, by all of us who are engaged in looking towards the future. And the younger generation is the future. As education institutions, they are our work, they are our purpose. So, as I said, our purpose is to equip the next generation. Fostering dialogue and a spirit of openness is critical, and nuanced understanding is central. And therefore, it is perfectly appropriate and our immense privilege to have Professor Baxi inaugurate the S. Krishnamurti Endowment Lecture series in law. Not only does Professor Baxi's work teach us at every step the power embedded in the form of process of law, and the immense potential in therefore engaging with its particular logic and structure, his work points unfailingly to the soul and spirit of the law. The genius of his insight has informed specific fields of law as diverse as international law, constitutional law, tort law, public interest law, and emergent areas such as neurolaw and ecocide, and many more fields of law in between. But throughout, even as he has engaged in these diverse fields of law and brought depth to the knowledge and understanding in our application of law and pushing the boundaries of law ever further, as a jurist, academic, and teacher, Professor Baxi has opened up perspectives on human rights with far-reaching implications. Global recognitions of the rights of the poor and the dispossessed, the responsibility of capital and corporate enterprise, and our conceptions of the challenges of the future are the legacy of his profound ideas. He has inspired generations of legal professionals, both in India and globally. I have witnessed firsthand during our time together at Warwick the effect of his work and teaching on students as they experienced a radical revisioning of ideas they had not previously thought to interrogate. So the shaken up faces of students was a very common sight once students had been in Professor Baxi's class, whether they were undergraduate students or postgraduate students or young professionals, young academics. So his work, as I said, in opening minds, in enabling us to constantly know what we're talking about, whilst considering consistently, why are we engaging in this? Why do we need to think like this? What do we need to know more or think about more? What are we missing? What needs to be in the picture? This critical insight, critical push, critical perspectives and insights together combined in his work, in his teaching, as an academic, as a jurist, as a teacher, has informed many of us. As I said, we work around the world in various fields, and the continuing work of people is testament to his work and the fruit of his work. I am personally deeply grateful for his friendship, guidance, and mentorship as we collectively work to bring our vision to fruition. On behalf of the school, the university, and all of us here, therefore, my warmest welcome to Professor Baxi, and thank you to all for being here again. Thank you very much.
Now, without further ado, I have the pleasure of inviting Professor Upendra Baxi to deliver his keynote address. Professor Baxi.
Thank you very much. Honorable Justice Sundar, J. K.V. Ramani, founder, Chancellor, Sai University, Vice Chancellor, Dr. Jamshed Bharucha, Sri Ram Panchu, Dr. Reena Patel, Vatan Bharucha, Dean, of course, of Law Faculty, Reena Patel, and colleagues and my colleagues in the Faculty of Law, university colleagues, members of the university committees and boards, and the court. It's a very dear participants, distinguished members of the bench of the bar, and gentle person. I say gentle person, it's the ladies and gentlemen. It's common to, I've often said this, but it's common to speak of two species, ladies and gentlemen, as exhausting humankind. And at least the present proceedings of the Supreme Court question that preference. So I've always said gentle person to include every person with dignity. It's an exceptional honor for me to be here on the occasion of Sri S. Krishnamurti Endowment Lecture in Law and appear before my Lord Justice Sundar, who I think, by mistake not, combines a science degree and a law degree. just as I combine uncomfortably literature with law studies in my time. And I think if my impression is correct, Justice Sundar reminds me of a multidisciplinarity of a kind that this university is trying to foster, namely the conversation between science and law. And reminds me of Roscoe Pound, Dean Roscoe Pound, who was himself a botanist and then became a jurisprudent and applied very largely scientific method to law, to understanding of law and justice, including administrative justice. So I think there is a lot of conversation to be built between science and law, and between literature and law, or broadly humanities and law. Justice Sundar referred to my dear friend Chinnappa Garu's book, which I refused to write a forward for because he was unusually reticent. In his Summit and Shallows, he has never spoken about himself. It's the vice of legal biographies to speak only about oneself and leave the rest of the world in margins. Whereas Chinnappa Garu referred to himself in the third person, a judge, and a judgment by, oh, this and this, somebody said this and this, but never mentioned his name. And I said, Chinnappa Garu, stop being such a anodyne bourgeois. You are a Marxian and may you remain for long, and it doesn't befit you to conceal yourself in these pages. But surprisingly, to my surprise, he did not budge from it. I had to give forward. But I think it is one of the better books, among the best books on constitutional law. And I'm glad it is read by such a busy person and such a distinguished jurist himself as Justice Sundar. There are lots of things I need to say about Justice Sundar and his kind reference to me as to how I strayed into legal studies and how I wrote poems rather than study law. I've come a long way. I've probably mismanaged my life in times as law teacher. But I would rethink perhaps if there was another opportunity to do music or painting or something else, anything else but law. I hope. I would have interest in law, but I would not spend my life telling other people how not to read the law. I gloriously failed in that mission. Although I'm supposed to be nobody to tell anybody how to read the law, I think I'm somebody to tell you how not to read a judgment, how not to read a legislation, how not to read a book, or law book it is. And I've done seminars on this on Delhi University with all kinds of people attended from other disciplines as well. So I'm today here virtually before you, and I hope before long to come to your campus virtuously. I think your campus is known for its public virtues, and I'm particularly happy, will be particularly happy to meet the colleagues of the law and the faculties and the students. I was particularly happy about Sai University when I first consulted its website, and my joy knew no bounds when I read that there was the Department of Neurobiology and Neurology Studies. Neuro law is what I, as Renina said very rightly, I dabble with. but to have a full department on neurobiology and to have a person, very few people I really admire greatly or worship even, a person called Professor Daniel Dennett, whom I never met, but who I met in print, is an honorary member of your faculty. There is not a university in South Asia or the developing countries which has been honored by such a great presence. Dr. Daniel Dennett's books I've read, and he was a great one to replace, to pair the idea of genetic inheritance, genetic genes, with the idea called MEMS, M-E-M-E-S, which meant cultural memory. Just the genes encode physiological memory of some kind or chemical memory of human beings. Similarly, MEMS embody the cultural memory of a people. And a fascinating philosopher, fascinating mind. Someday I hope to meet him in person and maybe at Sai University. I don't know, but it's a very great achievement. It is from what the Chancellor said, it is experimenting with variety of new ideas. And I think it's important, as my colleague with whom I was privileged to work at Sydney, Professor Julius Stone, used to say, and I quote him, these words are in my mind, written in my heart, legal education is the high art, he said, of speaking to the future. And this has made great impression on me, and that's what it is. And therefore, I'm very delighted that law students, among others, will have an opportunity to meet with this great gentleman, Paul Daniel Dennett, and a great thinker of our times. My research as Krishnamurti and life in law and in law is still ongoing. But I'm very glad to acknowledge his unwavering reputation as a gentle lawyer and his contributions, as far as I know, I get to study them in company and tax law and jurisprudence. But what has impressed me the most, perhaps, is his philanthropy, is his gift of affection to various social groups, but most particularly to educational institutions. And I'm quite curious to know how this tradition of individual philanthropy and even corporate philanthropy has developed in Tamil Nadu over the years, over the decades. And his role has been indeed in this direction exemplary. And I'm indeed humbled to be with you, to mark his singular virtues and what I suspect was his zest for good life, good living, which makes a human being, perfect. Now, I will not take too much of your time, but I will certainly take some of your time to make 5 or 6 quick points. And one is a threshold remark. And the threshold remark is this, that it is difficult for me to distinguish any longer between science and technology. I know there is some distinction between pure and applied sciences, and I think I know that applied sciences are called technology. But I do not think we can any longer maintain that distinction. We cannot maintain this distinction because we live in the era of hyper-reality or techno-reality itself. And the generations to come, the future generations to come, are techno-human beings already. what are called by Donna Haraway a cyborg. Cyborg, a species which is half machine and half human. Already, we are already there. We are all cyborg. And therefore, technology and high pure science and applied science distinction is perhaps not very relevant today. I will not go further, but to give illustration, techno-religion, you have channels like Bhakti and Sanskar, which shape people into religion. Jaggi Vasudeva comes, Baba, a lot of Sai Baba of Shiri on television. There are all kinds of techno worship, forms of techno worship, which would have delighted my old mother had she lived long. She was a very devout woman, and it's a kind of a cultural representation of the past, which is techno religion, techno worship. Likewise, you have techno law, e-courts and live streaming, and the judge was quite right to say that, justice was quite right to say that this is techno discussion on technology. I am here in Delhi and you are in Chennai and various other parts of the country and the world. Similarly, the techno self, our selves are becoming technical self, consumer self. There is also something called technopolitics. That is, I won't elaborate. Post-politics, post-national politics, global politics, which is entirely suffused with technology. There is also techno-narcissism, techno-theory, and I suspect techno-everything. And therefore, I don't distinguish between science and technology very sharply. And my second threshold point is I'm not talking about law and technology. I'm not going to, that's interesting. Or law in technology, IPR, all that kind of stuff. Or about law and justice as technology. I'm interested, but I will not talk about it. But I am not also going to talk about techno-law either, although it's interesting. But I'm talking about today with you, I'm just trying to share with you law as technology. Law itself is a social technology. You may call it a soft social technology. You may call it a normative technology, which struggles to become behavioral. We'll come to that. But my favorite expression for this, I just thought of it, is we are all experts in a mouse-click law and jurisprudence. Mouse-click law and jurisprudence. Whether it's case law, whether it's reading, digital class, humanities, classics, it's all mouse-click operation. We think today, nowadays, when we are with social media or with a computer, writing something, or with a blog, whatever. Now, this is mouse-click jurisprudence had its antecedents in the long time past. I just give a 16th century example, where Lord Cook and King James, I think, have very small memory for tyrants. And so forgive me if I get wrong, James I, I think it was, had a big and famous column in which James, the king, said somewhere that he embodies not merely divinity as the vicar of the Christ, as a divine right of kings kind of person, divine representative of the divine monarch of the earth. Not merely said that, but he said he has natural reason higher than its shadows and ministers and judges. And Lord Coke, now obviously also Lord Coke, was the Chief Justice at that time. And Lord Coke said, yes, my Lord, you are the embodiment of all virtues and all wisdom and also natural reason. But in law, I don't know what to do. In law, what happens is the law is a subject matter of reflection and hard studies throughout one's life. And in law, what we have is not natural reason, but, and these are his words, artificial reason. And only a judge and a jurist can expound the law, not the monarch of the country. Try a person in accordance with the law. So notion of artificial reason of the law being natural to judges and lawyers and law persons, but being artificial to sovereigns. It's a very important point. The idea of artificial reason of law is not new. The application of this idea is new. And what is the application? Now, my first point is that the application is first of all, weaponization of artificial intelligence. The mouthful. So I say weaponization, simply. Artificial intelligence is being used for purposes of warfare. And the question today is how to convert artificial intelligence from an instrument of warfare into an instrument of its opposite, namely the lawfare. The lawfare is the war of warring parties, but a dignified and civil war before courtroom, in courtroom. The habit of calling each other my learned friend, or somebody as a learned judge, learned profession, great study and reflection, argue about it in complete peace and friendship. They are adversaries in the court, but they are not personal enemies, the lawyers or judges who dissent from the majority. In other words, a culture of law is the culture of peace, culture of rights. The lawfare should replace warfare. But in a very delicious irony, the US Department of Defense acronymized the drones, drones, they are technically called lethal automatic drones as lethal automatic systems. In delicious irony, this was acronymized as laws. Lethal automatic something, laws. It acronymized as laws. It didn't realize that there's a dialectic relation between defense and law. In other words, the dialectic relationship between laws, as it called it, and laws with a small L and then laws with a capital L. Laws with a capital L is exercises in lethal sovereignty. Laws with a small L, laws is there are faculties of laws, faculty of laws in Punjab, in many places. Bentham made a great distinction in his book called, in his time in the 17th century, between law and laws. When you pluralize the term with an S as a suffix, laws, you are not talking about laws. So I don't know what faculty of laws does differently today from faculty of law as a matter of research. But I think, just think of drones. Does it signify technology of drones, a progressive utopia, or a dreadful dystopia? What is it that is significant? Now we know, we always say technology has sinister and evil uses, and technology has good uses. Obviously, drones serve their purposes for medical science, for pharmaceuticals, all kinds of things which are peaceful and develop egalitarian progress. But I'm talking about militarization, weaponization of drones. Let me give an example of the German scientist Fritz Haber. We all know what Fritz Haber did. He did organize this greatest possible discovery of the German scientist was discovery of what is called, he played with hydrogen and nitrogen and produced ammonia, another kind of gas, which is useful for, it's a great breakthrough of 20th century science, because ammonia produced by him thus marked a great increase in crop engineering, in food engineering, food development. So there's clearly a good side of technology. Without his work on hydrogen and nitrogen particles and producing this ammonia, there would have been no Green Revolution 1, 2, 3. It's the basic science and technology is a great advantage. At the same time, he also developed the first poison gas in his time. First father is known as father of chemical weapons. So we are used to saying that technology is good side and bad side, and all kinds of things we say. You know that great poem, let human beings have strength of giants. Prayer. Let human beings have a strength of giants, but the wisdom not to exercise it. So you have strength and wisdom, which moderates, or what in India called Hindu civilization called Maryada. No drama is supposed to have Maryada Purushottam. It's a Maryada Purushottam. Highest summit of restraint, self-abnegation, not using the powers but hands, is a virtue. So technology is a monster, creation of a monster of Frankenstein, and technology is. So in itself, people say it's not evil. Now flip side of that. You have the American Defense Department issuing last year or year before a big statement on the use of drones. For the next 30 years, research in drones, private and public, and to make them more lethal and weaponize them more and more precisely. The one side. And you on the other side, the great biological chemical weapons treaty, which has been normally oversubscribed, 187 nations or what more, which tries to control. Now, this raises the question, can norm control behavior? And there are any number of justifications for the growth of technology of drones, and there are any number of adverse comments on drones. That leads to more war, it's more expensive, it is precise and lethal, it does not observe the three principles of IHL, International Humanitarian Law. What does IHL say? Discrimination, dignity, and distinction. Distinction, dignity, and proportionality. That use of force must be proportionate and reasonable. The capping stone, pounding stone of IHL. This is not possible. A proportionate use is possible because you do target killing, or you have insect drones, which precisely individuals even can kill them. So it's economically a good thing. You don't need armies, you have techno wars. But it does not observe the idea of proportionality. It does not observe the idea of distinction. That is distinction between civilian and non-combatants and combatants. It goes wherever it is that programmed to go and can be programmed anywhere. That is not necessarily as with human. It's a war crime to use disproportionate force and to use human beings as shields for advancing army, against advancing armies. So, and dignity. How can machine intelligence, machine learning respect human dignity? It's a philosophical question, ethical question, but a question of great importance. So there is a great confusion in our minds when we begin with this proposition. And it is so stupid to think of it. It's so thoughtless to think of it. There's a distinction to be drawn between good uses and bad uses. And Vivek Buddhi, discernment, will lead you to good uses. This doesn't happen, my friends. Weaponization of artificial intelligence is a threat to human civilization as we have known it. It's a bigger threat than nuclear weapons, and perhaps a bigger threat than climate change and global warming. What do we do? That's the question. Is the question best left to technoethics? I will take only 10 more minutes, maybe a little less, to come to change the discussion somewhat and leave aside weaponization of technology. What do I have in mind? I have in mind, and I don't have too much time to deal with them, but I'll mention a fantastic idea or two. The first idea is to rethink about law. And this idea was founded by Lon Fuller, who had nothing to do with technology, worried about jurisprudence. But I use him in this context. Professor Lon Fuller's idea was, and take a deep breath, because he said that the law may be best conceived as a vast enterprise to subject human conduct to norms. Please try to understand each word matters here. What he said. He was a professor of law at Harvard and at Yale. And the other idea is by a social theorist or a sociologist, or Charles Ogburn, who is substantially nobly celebrated. 105 years now. And the articles nobody read, except a crazy man called Upendra Baxi and a few others. And his name was Charles Ogburn. And his great idea was that of cultural lag, that law lags behind material changes. I'll come to both the ideas. What was Fuller's idea? Fuller's idea was, and stop at each word. That's how a good lawyer and a good judge reads law. Stopping at each word. When I was a child, I used to hear on family radio in Rajkot, in Saurashtra, Gujarat, Nehru Chacha's broadcast. And one of his broadcasts was half an hour. And most of the time, I won't emulate him, but he spent in, say, 3 words. First he said, chalo, let's go. And stop for about 30 minutes. But it didn't actually take 30 minutes to 10 minutes. Chalo, chale, we're walking. The second word used was chal ke gire. And we fell down and started walking. And after eternity, he said, Phir uthe aur chale. Then we got up and started walking again. Chale, uthe, chale, gire, phir uthe, chale. That summarizes the whole life. Because law is an enterprise. Enterprise. Enterprise means what? Taking risks. Risk means what? Risk means, and this is the beginning of modernity in the whole world, the term. Risk-taking behavior characterizes the entrepreneur. When judges interpret law, they undertake a stormy voice, not knowing where. They use these touches called rules of interpretation and construction, laws and judges. But the decision is uncertain. It may go here and there. You know the old song of Mukesh, the great Bollywood singer, playback singer. एक दिल के टुकड़े हजार हुए, कोई यहाँ गिरा, कोई वहाँ गिरा. The heart pieces broke into several pieces, and some pieces fell here, something like that. They collect the pieces and call it interpretation. But they're not sure whether it's the right interpretation. Similarly, legislature. What is Boris Cohen, the great jurist, said 100 years ago or more? He said, a legislation is a treaty of peace among warring interests. And it's bound to be an ad hoc treaty. A legislation is a risk when you compare it with changing people's behavior or subjecting people's behavior to conduct. So in a sense, this is very important for us to understand law as an elaboration of risk, but risk you take with certain assurance of certain trust in things. Wherever there is risk-taking behavior, there is a trust-reposing behavior also. Risk and trust go together. And whom do we trust? If we dispute, we go to lawyers, arbitrators. We trust them. You go to a judge, to the or family court, or law commission to reform the law. Perhaps. Where do we go to? When we have problems, medical problems, we trust the doctor. We trust the engineers. We trust the what is now called epistocracy. There's bureaucracy. I have a word for environment called ecocracy. There's a bureaucracy, ecocracy, policy-making crowd, which is called nowadays called epistocracy from epistemology, who think experts, who know something more than we do. So every time we go by plane or by train, we put our life at the disposal of the pilot and the airline, the airport. Accidents do happen, but we trust them broadly. We trust doctors, we trust lawyers, we trust judges, we trust environmentalists, environmental bureaucrats, ecocracy. So risk and trust go together. The law is an affair, dialectics between risk and trust. And therefore it's an enterprise. The enterprise of subjecting law of behavior to norms. There's a faith, an astonishing faith, that norms can move the world, without which law is not possible. Without which dispute settlement is not possible. Nothing is possible unless there is trust. Which is wonderful to hear, of course, from the great judges, that the fundamental principle of rule of law in India is this. Then the fact that power may be abused, the fact that the power may be abused is not a ground for denying its conferrer. You can always come to us when the power is actually abused and your rights are violated, and we will decide. But the fact, probability that the abuse of power, why abuse of power may come to happen, that probability is not a ground for not giving it power. Do we learn nothing from experience? Every time, what is the doctrine of reasonable expectation in administrative law? What is the doctrine of promissory estoppel law? The trust you put in someone else, what is the breach of marriage, breach of promise to marry? The trust you put in someone else is betrayed constantly, every time. Then a case comes. And yet we say abuse of power is the ground. Possible abuse of power is not a ground. What is this? It's trust, epistocracy. I'm not saying it's good or bad, it's for you to decide. Trust the experts. Now the question is that the trust according with the rule of law, in whatever sense you put it, that's a question I leave it for you to decide. So normativity of law itself is contradictory. It doesn't gel. And doesn't gel, how can it influence behavior? I leave that question open. I now turn very briefly to Charles Ogburn. I'm very fond of Ogburn because Ogburn set me thinking. I don't know why he is not followed up or even worshipped, as far as I can see. If you're one of the few human beings in the world, think about Ogburn, and the more I think about him, the more I think about plight of law in India, the crisis of law in India, globally. He asked us to think of the distinction between a material culture and adaptive culture. It has nothing to do with law. It's not of sociology. But we have in management of science called science of material management. What is it? A series of do's and don'ts about such kind of, but we have nanotechnology. Again, do's and don'ts. No. So he said, when there are advances in material culture, the adaptive culture is still in search of formulations of the problem and formulations of the answer. Then technology goes ahead. The human cost, social cost of technology, how that to be addressed, how that to be defined, even that is a problem. There are 12 definitions of laws, drones. Each group of nations defines drones with a certain ideology dispute in international. There are 23 exceptions to the doctrine of consideration in the common law. There is the doctrine of sufficient reason, limitation, arbitration. Can you ever imagine? If the courts are going to judge what is sufficient reason under Section 4 of Limitation Act, why did 168 sections or schedule entries, limitation of 3 years, limitation of 2 years, of this thing, that thing, that thing? Why do they? If it is sufficient reason, we can reopen it. Leave it to the discretion of experts. The judges will decide. So norms themselves can regulate behavior only when they are certain and clear. But it's not the function of norms to be certain and clear. It's the function of norms to be discursive, to develop slowly in our time, make various needs are based on certain arguments on both sides. What is called the animal and administrative law, or the term partum, whatever it is. You must share both the sides. You must not judge in your course and so on. So essentially, norms are an ethically fractured phenomenon. And how do they regulate material culture? Material culture proceeds far ahead than adaptive culture. I only found one article in law which followed, only marginally, it is different, than by Stuart Macaulay and others, which follows this section. In regard to law of torts, what is different? What is different? That technology evolved far ahead. Material culture evolved. Factories began industrial revolution. But the law of tort could not find the employer, the Malik, negligent. Failing, what is reasonable care? Don't you go to your neighbor? I think we must question that Lord Atkin put in another context. Who is your neighbor? So, fellow servant rule in torts was a goal of immunities for the employer. Fellow servant was at fault, the employer was not liable. So Macaulay just tried to say that common law was the adaptive culture and industrial revolution was the material culture at that time. And that's a good beginning. But we have never appreciated this concept of leg properly. If law indeed is in a sense the adaptive culture, then law can never be a hard technology, can never lead hard technology. Law can only follow. And all our efforts to make the norms lead the change are futile. On the other hand, you can argue that people enact norms, make treaties. There are some successful laws. Burma is very successful. 9th century was very successful time. Number of examples. Is Krishnamurti Baxi has a bunch of norms and its normative progeny over the time. Burma, right down to Janhit 2022 case of reservation of forward caste. All the basic sort of cases, only half a dozen cases as basic structure been applied to invalidate the law. And there's a question whether basic arguments are involved. So basic structure as a set of norms articulating fundamental features, the power constituted for judicial review to articulate the fundamental feature, essential feature. Have they regulated behavior? If you argue that they can't, norms cannot regulate behavior in certain areas, say technology, the discussion ends. And the distinction between material culture and adaptive culture is non-dialectic, non-relational to each other, then the matter ends. That's what we are fated to live. On the other hand, you can argue that at certain points of time, the material culture is influenced and even yields to normative culture or adaptive culture. What are those times? These are big questions. And these questions arise when you study law as a technology. My final point is, we must all study law as technology, starting from common law areas. What is law torts? I have somewhere written that law of torts is nothing but a right to commit lawful harm. That's all that tort says. Everything else is free and fair competition. That's how capitalism develops. Some people have more money and wealth than others. Some people are poor. That's how inequality develops. Because free competition is not a lawful harm. It's a lawful harm. I used to have a friend called Madhav Menon. And Madhav, what are you doing, Baxi? What are you doing? I said, Madhav, I tell you, I'm doing this analysis of tort law. And he said, this is all ideological analysis, textual analysis. I said, Madhav, just listen to me. I have a boutique in an area of Delhi, which is unlikely. I develop a boutique and my children grow up and I succeed in business. And you come next door and start a boutique. And you take away all my clients. And I have no clients come to my shop. And for 20 years I'm in the business. I've developed the business. I lose all my income, all my clientele. I have a choice to do something else. Start it all again. Have you done any harm to me? The answer is no. Father is competing with me. Free and fair competition. The right to do, legal and moral right to do harm to me. Capitalism is based on the right to do legal harm. What is legal harm? Of course, it's not a legal harm. Morality don't fit in Judea, it's not a legal harm. Right? Injury, damnum sine. Damage without injury is not a harm. There are hundreds of examples. Similarly, contract. What promises can law and morality is a different matter, but in law, it's all about technology of promise keeping. It's only contract. What is constitutional law? Interpretation. A social technology to make people do things they don't want to do. There is opposition to interpretation and there is support for interpretation. That's not a matter. What's the administrative law? Why do you take books on administrative? Simple, three ideas. Hear the other side. Don't be a judge in your own cause. And don't be biased. That's the idea. Why do you need big discourses on what administrative law is? So, in other words, law as technology is the idea that is based on the idea that adaptive, that non-material cultures have something to do with material cultures. That non-material cultures have a say on the scope of material cultures, uses of material culture. Now, if you have that space, that idea, then there is some purchase on talking about law as social technology. Otherwise, of course, we talk about law and technology as law in technology and so on, and waste everybody's time, including yours. It's up to you. But basically, law as technology, social technology, soft technology, normative is technology, institutional technology. I have to tell my students at my last point in Delhi when I was teaching, I think of law as LAIE. Law consists of 4 domains: legislation, interpretation, and administration, interpretation, enforcement. LAIE. There are 4 domains of law. So if you take law in a wider sense, if you take law as LAIE, it is wrong to perhaps to even say that all of it is non-material culture. The distinction between material and non-material culture has to be questioned. But if it is non-material, if there is such a distinction, if there is such a distinction, can you ever say, and in what cases, that non-material culture influenced, cribs, confines, and controls material culture? That is law as technology. Thank you for now. Any questions, comments? I'm not very good at chat box at all, but please do help me if I have to ask you again what you're saying. It is because I'm technologically ill-constituted self, and I have to live with it. Thank you.
Good evening, friends. On your behalf, let me thank, can we see him, Dr. Baxi? Is it? On your behalf, let me thank Professor Upendra Baxi for this wonderful lecture. I think the foundation could not have had a better start for its endowment lectures. Thank you, Professor Baxi. I mean, you are in a class of one as an academic, as a legal scholar, a jurist, a philosopher. You mentioned radical revisioning. And when I was hearing him, K.G. Kanavaran came to mind. And what came to me was insurgent thought, because that's what Professor Baxi does. He does not leave you without churning your mind. And this is no comment, sir, on age, but you have straddled the heights of eminence ever since ever. It's often said that the law is years behind society because it is slow-moving and cumbersome. But sometimes it is ahead of society. And that is when nimble legal minds, use legal tools and processes to fashion change. And it's in that context that technology and the law is a fascinating subject. And we've heard from Professor Baxi, who's coined this phrase, the techno-human. And indeed, that is something to ponder over, whether there are some fundamental shifts at play. And I'm one has to go beyond. Of course, we've seen research. We're familiar with online appearances. COVID has brought us the facility of doing work online. But I think the great area to examine is the area of artificial intelligence. A wide range of functions which, to answer, to research, to solve, to write, to craft. And I think a distinction arises because of the fact that while the first wave of artificial intelligence systems relied on carefully managed training data, today they use much larger data taken from online sources. And you have something called the large language models, which curiously, acronym to LLM, which are trained and have access to the entire internet. And that's an expansion of capabilities. Is it good? Is it bad? Is it both? We have High Court judges. There's a judge in Chandigarh who relied on Chat GPT to do research on the judgment. And we have cases filed against Chat GPT, complaining of errors, fabrication, defamation, bias, privacy issues, intellectual property rights. But essentially, it looks as though it's here to stay. How do we use it? How do we regulate it? And that's where we come back to the law, because this is the standard business of the law. It's a drawing of lines and it's controlling. But it's up to the law in this respect to do what Dr. Baxi was talking about, the triumph of soft technology over the law, over the hard technology of these processes. And that is a test for the law. I must compliment Sai University. Some of the remarkable things about the university are its foundational courses, where really the fundamental skills of thinking, of communication are stressed upon the range of courses it offers and its wonderful faculty. And I'm looking for the emergence of a culture amongst its students which stresses reading, inquiry, exploration, expression. And something else which came across today, a response, being responsive to newness. And as Dr. Baxi said, speaking to and with the future. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir, for joining us and for your remarks. May I now invite our very own Vice Chancellor, Professor Jamshed Bharucha, to address the gathering.
Thank you, Professor Baxi. I'll put in my vote among others to say that your lecture was provocative, intellectually provocative, which is, I think, what education should be in this day and age. It has really provoked thought and should provoke thought that faculty and students continue to try to digest and make sense of. Today, I am the other Dr. Bharucha. So I humbly thank our generous donors for your commitment to and faith in endowing this lecture series in law and technology, which will remain in perpetuity, as will Sai University. To our students and our faculty, I would like you to imagine the year 2034, 2033, 10 years from now. For people like me, 10 years now is, you blink and it's gone. But we all remember being 18, 19-year-olds, 17-year-olds. 10 years was unthinkable, absolutely unthinkable. Okay, it was. And our students were born in this century. There's no point in this millennium, no point in us talking about the 21st century, what we need for the 21st century. We're already a quarter way into the 21st century. The 20th century, which for most of us was most of our lives, is ancient history to our students. The future does not belong to us as education leaders. And sorry, faculty, neither does it belong to you. Of course, it belongs to you in your responsibility to prepare our students for a future that belongs to them, to you, the students. You are one of the first generations in history, and this is widely acknowledged in debates about the future of higher education, about employability, about professional training. The first generation, perhaps, that will see your own profession fundamentally disrupted many, many times in the course of your active career. The days are gone when you can be trained, you get your degree, it's stamped, you are qualified, you take some examination, you get your license, and you practice, and you retire. Gone with the wind in every field. So, computer science students who learn Python and are hoping to get jobs as computer programmers, sorry, and sorry to the computer science faculty. You will see the time, I think, sooner rather than later when people say, oh, Python, isn't that a snake? There will be completely new ways of doing it. So education must rapidly move away from simply disseminating and imparting knowledge, which has been the traditional phraseology. Of course, you need to acquire knowledge, but move from that more and more to what I call climbing the cognitive ladder. Honing, training, and testing and experimenting with the highest cognitive, fundamental cognitive skills that human beings are capable of if we are to stay 1 or 2 steps ahead of artificial intelligence. That so many people were shocked. Even Google apparently was taken aback when ChatGPT came out. And I think in 5 years, we'll look back at the first iteration of ChatGPT and say, remember that? As if it was sort of ancient history. It's going to move very, very fast. In order to be a relevant professional, a leader in your field, it is no longer going to be sufficient just to have acquired the knowledge that we have today in your profession, or the skills of practice that are used today, because all fields will be disrupted fundamentally, and law certainly. I'm one of the few non-legal professionals in this room. Even our Chancellor, who's not a lawyer, is the son of a distinguished lawyer. So I hope you'll excuse me for speculating about a field in which I am not trained. But as an educator, particularly somebody who likes to push the boundaries as an instigator for reform in education, because I think our education systems from top to bottom are obsolete in many ways. But our students will actually face that reality, whereas our distinguished speaker, Professor Baxi, said, all legal knowledge, all law books, all laws, all cases, all opinions, all analyses will be available to anybody at the click of a button. Okay, so there'll be almost no point in mugging up all that stuff. In fact, already the experiments have been done with ChatGPT that even the synthesis of that voluminous amount of information, a good synthesis equivalent to a decent professional student, or even somebody taking a bar exam, this was done in the United States, can do an average job that qualifies the person. That ChatGPT can do that in a fraction of a second, pass those exams. So even the synthesis of all this information will be automated. So what does that leave for us human beings, for professionals, and also for legal professionals? I do believe it means our education system needs to be much more focused on training, practice, getting in the habit of learning new things, learning how to learn new things, getting into the habit and being comfortable by being provoked with completely new ideas, things like the cyber human, okay? We can no longer allow ourselves to be shocked and dismayed by new developments. It's going to be a fact. The complete disruption of all professional practice and all disciplines by advances in AI can no longer be blocked or stopped. Then we can hold back a tsunami with our hands. So I hope that at Sai University, we can push the boundaries of all forms of education, including legal education, so that we do justice to our student talent and get them ready for a world that's completely different from those for which we were trained. Thank you once again, to our generous donor, to our generous founder, Chancellor, who has put his hard-earned wealth to the service of education and research in a completely selfless philanthropic way. Thank you to the awesome erudite legal fraternity present here today. We're honored to be given that kind of respect as a new institution. Thanks to our dynamic leader of the law school, Dean Reena Patel, and to our faculty and our students. Thank you very much. Now, I think that we're still open to questions for Professor Baxi. I don't know who is handling that. You are?
Professor, we have one from Mahesh Menon, a former faculty member here at Sai University. He says, if we imagine a technology-driven legal system which will accurately predict and decide and replace humans, what then becomes of any emancipatory potential that law had? Will we not forever create a status quo from which we cannot escape?
Well, thank you very much. It's a very interesting comment. And about anxiety, I have taken the view that almost consistently that law has two kinds of potential, so tendencies or forces, or as Boaventura de Sousa Santos puts it, pillars of law. What are the poles of law? What are they? Regulation, repression, and emancipation in his words. I say regulation and emancipation. It's a matter of terminology or more than that. I leave that aside. Leaving it aside, what happens to emancipatory potential? Well, some people would say considerable level of emancipatory potential is presently built into technology. When Polly and Dolly were cloned, two sheep into Scotland, were cloned by scientists, you know what was the response? Which startling response, exhilarating response, response of exhilaration, response of liberation by some ultra-feminists who said, this is excellent news, this is earth-shaking news, because we felt bad in hiring wombs in surrogacy, human surrogacy. But if horses and sheep can take our embryos and give birth to a fully grown human being, human infant, you would rather have that. Now, animal rights people might begin to complain if they took this seriously. That's a different matter. But the idea that horses can keep human babies, embryos, the embryo can be transplanted, sheep, for the emancipatory potential, which law should not forbid according to them. Right? Being a cyborg, half computer and half human beings, or being practicing in a mouse-click jurisprudence and law, is it emancipatory or not? It's a question, but I think it is emancipatory. So certain democratizing and re-democratizing functions have been assigned even to free speech on online as emancipatory importance. Certain other hate speech, for example, quoted as repressive features. Now, the question of questions is this a judgment that we make case by case, or a judgment that we make taking the total system into account, systematic perspective on law? It's no use saying it is this and that at the same time. That's the idea about the new technology, also weaponization, all that. Good thing, bad thing. Balancing. Balance is not an answer. You have to choose. So some people say you cannot have law without either. Law does repress and will continue to repress. At the same time, law will emancipate some. So it's a matter of sectors. If you take sexual morality, and the present Supreme Court, since Justice Deepak Mishra's time, a string of decisions in favor of sexual morality. If you take disability jurisprudence, again, the potentially emancipatory function of law is stressed, what you call judicial activism. If you take reservation, things become very complicated with the 2022 decision on Janet about economically weaker section, income-based classification. So you've got this and that kind of attitude. But if you take a systematic perspective, some would say there were no emancipatory potential in colonial law. Whereas Queen Victoria's proclamation say we have to give the blessings of liberty within empire, rule of law and all that stuff. So depression is felt closer. It's felt by individual subjects of the law. They don't say a whole of colonial law repressive. Some people have on view on other, but I think the denial of freedom and rightlessness that was caused during the colonial period, it can be balanced with some rights that they gave. It's systematically repressed. Was globalization a global phenomenon repressive of or emancipatory? I think my own answer would be repressive. So in a sense, when I take either on the one end, on the other end approach, some good, some bad, some repression, some emancipation. And that will continue till eternity. Everything has good aspects and bad aspects. Or one is to take a systematic overview and say nothing can justify human repression. And law as a means of social control is nothing but repression. Nothing but repression. Now you can say repression for a good cause, a bad cause. Your option, your privilege. But that doesn't solve the problem. Is law fundamentally a repressive phenomenon? If you look at legal positivists, they all along say law equals force, justified force monopoly. Hans Kelsen defined it as force monopoly. Max Weber defined it as force monopoly. Now, to justify law is to justify coercion and violence. Then Gandhi, Mahatma Gandhi, then Periyar and Ambedkar to justify people's law, village law. Ambedkar famously said, what is village but a den of oppression? He was thinking in terms of what happens to my caste and your caste, as we now call it. Repression. So if you begin to think from the point of view of repressed classes, dispossessed classes, disenfranchised classes, which are always in the majority, law is inherently repressive. And you must find alternatives to law, to conduct, to regulate conduct. What are those alternatives to law? What a law means coercive law. And there you find plenty of examples. I won't go into that in the capital punishment cases. So I think we have a difficult thought there. I think technology, if you are to conclude again, on the one hand, on the other hand, thinker, it is repressive of the message. If you're a systematic thinker, it is your duty to study hard and find a compelling. There is no other alternative kind of answer to the question that has been raised. That's what I would often say just now. But I'll think about it more.
Thank you, Professor Baxi, for so patiently answering our questions and in such great depth as well. Thank you very much indeed. May I now invite Professor Shiju, the Vice... Oh. May I now invite Professor Shiju, our Vice Dean, to deliver the vote of thanks.
Esteemed dignitaries and my dear friends, as we come to the closing moments of the first S. Krishnamurti Endowment Lecture, I take the opportunity to extend our heartfelt gratitude to everyone who made this a reality. First of all, to the man who exposed us to a riot of ideas, including studying law as a technology, bringing in jurist Lon Fuller, the idea of law as an enterprise, bringing in the sociologist Charles Ogburn, the idea of cultural lack. It was a treat. Prof. Upendra Baxi, thank you very much for your wonderful talk. By delivering the first edition of the Endowment Lecture on an important topic, you have definitely set a high standard and stature for the lectures. Thank you very much. Despite a busy schedule has become a cliche now, but as far as Justice M. Sundar, our esteemed guest of honor, it is especially true today, from being the last working day before vacations in the court and rushing for an official dinner, he made time for us to attend this lecture. Thank you very much, Your Lordship. He had to leave for the dinner, official dinner, as I said. In his absence, I express our heartfelt gratitude to Justice Sundar for his presence and the erudite speech that he delivered. I also thank Justice Lakshmi Narayan and Justice K. Kannan, who were present and who also had to leave for the official dinner. Thank you very much, Your Lordships, for your presence. Our guest of honor, Senior Advocate Sriram Panju, a member of our governing board, is one of the first persons that we at law school reach to, whether it is for arranging a guest lecture or organizing an endowment lecture. Thank you very much, sir, and thank you very much for your address today. I take the opportunity to thank Dr. Vasanta Barucha and her family for instituting an endowment lecture in the name of her beloved father at School of Law, Sai University. This gesture means a lot to us. Thank you very much, madam. We are fortunate to have Mr. K.V. Ramani, our beloved Chancellor, with us today. When we broached the idea of an endowment lecture some 6 months back, he enthusiastically welcomed the idea and went a step ahead and persuaded her sister to institute a generous endowment at School of Law, Sai University. All your actions, sir, firm up our belief that School of Law has a special place in your heart. Thank you very much, sir. Professor Jamshed Barucha, our Vice Chancellor, thank you very much for your presence, talk, and continued support. And a special thanks for predicting and cautioning us about the future of legal education and profession. Professor Reena Patel, thank you very much for your presence, for your leadership, and for getting Professor Baxi as the first speaker for the endowment lecture. I thank all the esteemed guests who have gathered here and all those who are attending online. I also thank our guests from Sai Educational Trust who made it a point to come here today. I thank our friends from the media for covering the event. And there are many people who work behind the scenes to make this a huge success. Chitra and Siddhant, a special thanks. Thank you very much, Abhishek, Vikas, Anjana, Abhinav from School of Law, our Registrar Philip Stanley and his entire team, Amit, Director of Finance, Vijay, Director of Projects, Vivek, Director of Admissions, Abhishek, and the entire admissions team, Nellai, Venugopal, Nasreen, Divya, and all of you. Many faculty members from School of Computing and Data Science and School of Arts and Science came today and adjusted their classes so that the students can attend. Heartfelt thanks to all of you. I thank the hotel staff and not last but not the least, my beloved students from School of Law, from School of Arts and Science and School of Computing and Data Science. Thank you very much for coming today. I can see many more people whom I should thank. I'm thanking you in my heart. Thank you very much. Thank you very much.
Thank you. And may I also just extend a special thank you to all our volunteers who have been here since 3 p.m., standing, ferrying across the mics, escorting our guests. So thank you to all our volunteers. Thank you very much.